Hey everybody, welcome back to FSi DFS. Looking at the Friday night, August 30th, was it 10 game slate? Yeah, 10 game slate. Pay attention to weather. Looks like we got a couple of games that might be impacted either by winds or by a little bit of rain. No postponement threats at all, but maybe you get a delay in one of the games here tonight, maybe in Cleveland. But yeah, Coors Field, the winds are going to be blowing out. So we already have an elite offense in Coors Field, and now we're talking about winds blowing out. Baltimore is going to be a very, very popular stack here tonight. But let's start with the pitchers as we always do. We got the sheet. We'll pull it up here in a couple of minutes. But we're going to start with the 9K and above salary pitchers. Blake Snell, by far and away, the number one option on the board here tonight. There's no argument against it. Did struggle a little bit in his last start, but I'm not going to really look too much into that. This guy is absolutely dominant, absolutely elite, and this is a great matchup against Miami. Miami just wrapped up a series in Coors Field, and typically in a team's first game outside of Coors, they struggle a little bit. The ball, coming out of the pitcher's hand, it breaks a little bit more, and it's just historically we've seen offenses struggle. It's been the thing with the Rockies all forever. They get out of Coors Field in that first game, they just struggle a little bit more offensively than other games on the road. So Blake Snell, awesome. SP1, most popular pitcher on the board. Not too much else to say. Big gap after that, and then I'm going to go with Valdez and then Kirby in my rankings. I could understand if you wanted to go Kirby, but for me and for this argument, I'm going to say Valdez over Kirby. Kirby we talk about as like being an elite control pitcher. Well, Valdez has really shown just that over the past month or 2 months at this point in time. You can see past 10 starts, he's averaging less than 2 walks per game, just 1.8 walks per game, and his strikeout rate has ballooned recently. He didn't have the strikeout rate as going as well early to mid-season, but lately something's happened and he is cruising every single start, going out there delivering just a solid floor. So even though he is in a tougher matchup facing off against Kansas City, I'm going to take Valdez over Kirby. Lugo, he's there. I think he's in your player pool if you're going like 150 lineups, but his strikeout rate is way down, and honestly, he's more of like a fade in my opinion, because the guys above him, the guys below him, I all rank them higher than Lugo. So just a dart and a hope and a prayer, if anything, if you are going in that direction. Going into the mid-tier, Gausman and Lopez really stand out in this mid-tier of Lively and up. I'm going to take Lopez over Gausman. Gausman, he's been pitching well. Like, there's no argument against that. But he's facing off against Minnesota. Minnesota just has all those left-handed bats that I don't really like playing right-handers against Minnesota just because of the damage that they can do. Lopez, though, he's got back-to-back shutouts, essentially, in his 2 starts. He's got 3 straight quality starts, 4 of his past 5. Strikeout rates are up and down. Pablo Lopez is one of those pitchers where, boom bust. I talk about in all my videos, those boom bust kinds of pitchers like Peralta and Nola, the guys that go out there and you're not sure if you're getting 30 or you don't know if you're going to be getting 7. But regardless, I'm going to be taking Lopez over Gausman for this matchup. After them, I think it's a pretty clear break. And then Kershaw, Gallen, and Lively, I could really listen to any argument putting these guys in any order. Feels weird saying I'm willing to take Lively over Kershaw and Gallen, but when you take into account like the matchups and everything else, I think it's fine. Kershaw, just one hesitation with him is like how deep are they going to let him go? He is starting to get closer to like a full rep or a full look at starts. He hit 88 pitches in his last start after not hitting over 83 since his return. So a little bit of boost to him with that. Maybe that he sees the 90 to 95 pitches, but I think with the Dodgers, they're going to be playing it safe and making sure that he's going to be ready to go for the playoffs. Going down into the cheap tier, McGill, he is back up from the minors, and he's going to be facing off against the White Sox. Really anybody facing off against the White Sox who's sub 8K, you're going to have interest in regardless of how good or bad that they have been. Sears rocked in his last start, but prior to that, he was looking really solid, and this Texas offense just has not looked solid. They've been disappointments time and time and time again. So while Sears isn't my favorite pitcher, I think he's a phenomenal GPP tournament play if you are looking for guys that are below 8K. So looking at the sheet here, it's Snell up at the top, and then just like a massive gap. Valdez, Kirby, Lugo lean more towards a fade. Lopez over Gossman, gap. And then I did go Kershaw down to Lively, but I could understand listening to any order of these three guys. McGill facing off against the White Sox. Sears in the upside. I like that for a GPP play. And everybody else just kind of rounds things out. Suarez has looked okay for Baltimore, but he is playing in Coors Field with the wind blowing out, so a little bit of hesitation there. Wind blowing out in Coors Field. Baltimore, top stack of the day. I really don't think there's much else to talk about with that. Real quick, the Angels starting pitcher, Aldegary, I think is how you pronounce it. He's not even in the player pool for DK, so don't pay too much attention to that. But when talking about the Seattle Bats, I did pull Aldegary's stats up here. He, in the minors this season, 95 innings pitched. He has 134 strikeouts, so well over, a K per inning, well over that. And another note, he's only allowed 3 home runs. In 95 innings pitched, only 3 home runs allowed. So this guy's got some serious stuff, some serious juice. And Seattle, while their offense is respectable, they still strike out an absurd amount. So while it's like a new pitcher in the minors coming up to the majors, and you kind of want to focus the bats on the other side a lot of times in that, I do think that Seattle can struggle, and I do have them down here is a low GPP target. But back to the bats. Baltimore going to be your number one stack on the day. I don't really have to say too much about that. After them, I really do like the New York Mets. Vegas also really likes the New York Mets. They have the second highest implied run total on the board, facing off against Cannon and facing off against the weak Chicago White Sox bullpen. And they're very affordable. You get past Lindor and Alonso, and everybody's 4-7 and cheaper. You got a third of their lineup going to be priced below 4K, and you get those lefties and switch hitters in this lineup that I'm certainly going to be having interest in. And quickly, you can see that I think the Mets are going to see quite a bit of ownership, especially as a pivot off of the Baltimore bats, who, well, they're pricey. Let's pull them up here. Yeah, so Gunnar Henderson near 7K, Santander 5'9", Rushman 5'7". You can see that we got half of the Baltimore lineup is more expensive or just as expensive than pretty much any of the Mets bats. All of the Baltimore lineup is going to be more expensive than half of the Mets lineup. So while the the Mets are going to be, I think, a popular pivot off of that. GPP, I really do think that the Yankees are going to be a fantastic option. Pull them up here. Facing off against Eric Fetty, he did get traded from White Sox to Cardinals, and honestly, he's looked pretty well. But I think what makes the Yankees a great GPP pivot is that they have they just have super high upside. We all know that at this point in time. But they have salaries that are comparable to the quote-unquote what's going to be chalk of Baltimore. So you take Baltimore out. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the 7.2 salary price tag on Judge. That's just insane. Well worth it. I mean, it's insane. But with comparable pricing to what should be the chalk, I really don't expect much ownership to be on the Yankees, even though they have the upside to absolutely break a slate, and they have an implied run total that is still way up there on the board here tonight. So I do like them. Jazz, he is back into the lineup, but we're even talking about getting some of those cheaper lefty guys who could be batting higher up in the lineup, guys like Verdugo. Wells has been swinging a nice bat. Torres, he's sometimes been up there in the lineup as well, jamming him in there. But yeah, you're probably not going to be getting Judge and Soto. Let's just see what happens if we do one of these builds with Blake Snell. And then we'll just go a super cheap pitcher. We'll go Sears to the upside. 3K remaining. So you're probably not going to be getting both these guys with Snell, even if you are going with a cheaper pitcher. But maybe you go double cheap at pitcher and even then, it's still a little bit dicey because you got 3.5K remaining for all of the remaining bats. So yes, you're probably not getting Judge and Soto at the same time. I would lean Soto over Judge. Just that $600 can go a long way in your builds, and you do get the lefty-righty matchup in that regard. Not that that matters too much to Aaron Judge. San Francisco, pretty solid option facing off against Miami. Just always with the pinch hit risk, have to pay attention to that. Minnesota, I really mentioned how, yeah, they're facing off against Gossman, and Gossman's a solid pitcher, but Minnesota just has very, very good numbers against right-handed pitching, and I could see them doing well. Leverage stacks against my favorite, or who I expect to be the most popular pitchers on the board. So this is kind of where things all shake out. Cleveland, Houston also have very high implied run totals on the board. Texas, while they have been struggling offensively, I think they can make for a really nice GPP play, facing off against Sears, who, like I said, he just got absolutely torched in his last start, but he also has the possibility of going out there and doing very well, which leads Texas to being a GPP play. Colorado, put GPP just because, I mean, if they're seeing a massive amount of ownership in Coors Field, I'm just going to be fading them. But if they're not really seeing much ownership at all, and the winds are blowing out, or people are going towards like the cheap Suarez, who has the capability of getting you 20 DK points, going to have a little bit more interest in them. So hopefully this was able to kind of guide you in the right direction. I know we didn't talk too much about the individual plays, but I was low on time. I'm getting this video out late. I want to get this out and published. So good luck in your contest as always. Mega Ruler will be back tomorrow. We will have a Saturday video out by him. So check that out. Good luck in your contest. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you in the next one.